Okay, folks, welcome back. Man, you guys are chomping at the bit. That's good. All right. Let's get this out of the field of view. You don't need to see that. Okay, so we're going to pick up where we left off. Isn't that what we always do? Usually go off on a tangent or something like that, but I'm going to start off like getting all these brushes out of here. Hey, the Cardinals here. What a maroon. Good evening, sir. So we left off doing the base color on these Germans, and this will be all the Germans that I'm going to refurb, just the bases. I've got two other Germans. These are actually platoon 20 figures that I set off to the side here. There's a reason I set them off to the side. I'll take a picture of these guys and we'll talk through why. I'm going to repaint their jackets because when I painted these guys in the mid-1980s, not mid-80s, 1990, I wish I painted like this in the 1980s, 1990s. These are not SS guys, and they've got some kind of weird camouflage that's none of the above. It's not SS, and it's not a Zeltbahn. That's really what they should be wearing. They definitely have some kind of a smock. I don't believe these guys are supposed to be SS guys, but they do have some kind of a smock, and they made some of these out of Zeltbahn. Let me zoom in on them a little bit, and I'll show you what they look like. The figures actually look pretty good, other than that smock. And we're going to repaint them. We're going to repaint that like it's a Zeltbahn. And I don't think I'm going to do that anytime soon. It's a handy weapon because it's a 50 millimeter mortar, and actually, they look pretty good, other than that smock, which is just, really annoying looking. So I'm going to do something with it. But we'll just repaint it black and then start from the get-go. Now there's all kinds of videos on how to paint Zeltbahn. I'm sure I'll be able to come up with something that I'm happy with. You're painting Italians. Italians like the Italian Americans or Italian Italians? And who are your Italians by? Who makes them? I don't have any Italian figures. I don't have any Italian figures. I went through all those plastic figures that I have, and they're pretty trashy. Even the ones that I like some of the Airfix guys, their rifles are too bendy. Like, I'm not going to waste my time on them. End up with like a bent rifle. The Caesar Italian Paras. Okay, what's that? Folgore. That's the Air Mobile division that they have. I don't think they para-dropped anywhere, did they? I'm pretty sure it's Folgore. Do I get a prize if I get it right? Only if I give myself a prize. Caesar, huh? Let's see what you got here. Plastic Soldier Review. What a great site, man. And what makes it even better is it's all 20 millimeter stuff. 1/72nd scale stuff. So if you don't like 1/72nd scale things, you just don't go here. Manufacturers. You said Caesar? Caesar, and let's look for World War II. World War II Italian infantry. A better way to check it is actually go by period. And then you can go to World War II, Italy infantry, Caesar World War II Italian paratroopers. Okay. Lots of submachine guns there, man. They got these little berets or what have you. It says plastic medium consistency. Would you say they're soft or like the rifle barrels? Are they some Are they resistant a little bit? Yeah, I really don't know much about Italian paratroopers at all. Other than they had that really cool camouflage, a lot of it got confiscated and some SS units ended up using it. You got guys that like wear it and stuff. I think that poster child of the Third Reich, guy named Max Wunsch. They even make a bust of him. You know, if you want to be if you want to worship the saviors of Europe, you can get a bust of Max Wunsch, who was I believe he's the Panzer regiment commander of Hitler Jugend. I believe that's who he is. Anyways, he's in this famous photo where he's looking sideways and he's got an Italian smock thing. Yeah, Folgore. I like that site. I visited a few times to look at the quality of some Germans I was interested in getting. They are bendy. I would put them closer to Orion in consistency. Well, the Orion guys are actually pretty hard. I mean, I'm pretty happy with them. Like, I'm pretty comfortable painting them. Yeah, if they're close to the Orion, I'm happy. I think these Orion will do fine. I've come close to getting the U.S. tank crews for the Orion stuff. You like painting panzers from a good old camel. Yeah, he's got some good ideas. But anyways, that's I have several of these soldiers. Like Halm. Halm actually has a cover on his helmet. I actually don't like the way the covers look like on the regular Wehrmacht guys. It normally would be like Zeltbahn, unless you're actually doing a snow thing, but that's what it's supposed to be, Zeltbahn. But when I did these, I just didn't have the confidence to do Zeltbahn, so I just painted them gray. And I think they look fine, but if I had to do them again, I'd probably put Zeltbahn on them. Here you go. But I don't like the way the Zeltbahn covers look like on the German helmets. It just looks like out of place, you know? Like it's got a bunch of colors that don't really belong with the rest of them. So, okay, let's get started. We need to get U.S. Field Drab out here in full force. And that's what we're going to be doing, and we're going to be dry brushing that with something like this would be fine. Yeah, there's a lot of tutorials out there that weren't available way back when. And I can use those two guys. I believe they're Brasic and Hoffner. Yep. Yep, that's who these two guys are. I'm just going to paint their smocks. Like a Zeltbahn. You know, but they're platoon 20s, you know. Just like when I do 15s, man, you don't have to paint the top tier figures. You can paint some not so great figures and make them look good. You know, that's pretty empowering. I really enjoy doing that. And I'm not just saying that. I'm just like, you know, I enjoy painting figures that are not that great. Well, first of all, they paint quicker. So, you know, they don't have as much detail, so they paint quicker. Anyhow, one more day to go and we'll make it to the weekend. Notice how I said that. One more day. Yep, you got to survive all day Friday. It's not like at the beginning of the day Friday. It's the week. No, it's not. You got to make it through Friday. And you know I'm going to have to do a live session where I'm getting through the rules. There's no way I'm going to have the motivation to just read them on my own. There's just no way. I'm just not going to be interested enough to do it. I'm burned out too much from work. I'm just going to fall asleep. So be on the lookout for that in the next couple of weeks. Probably do some live sessions of getting through the rules. I know it's probably not very exciting to do, but I'm sorry. It's the only way it's going to get up off the ground. So okay, yeah. Every when you're doing this dry brush, every step you do above the basic paint, the brown paint everywhere, takes less and less time. It's quicker. It's that first get the brown in every little nook and cranny. It takes forever. Like I said, I'm making popcorn for that one. Going to be awesome. Well, I don't know if it's going to be awesome. Just seeing, I may have done too big of a scenario. That's okay. I can always dial it back. I could start real basic, like okay, three Americans versus like a sniper or something like that, and just to get them. Okay, all right, you killed the sniper. Cool. Let's start over. Now the Germans will get a half squad, and the Germans get a fire team. Maybe mix some stuff up, but it's gonna take me doing stuff like that to get it up off the ground. I know it wasn't difficult to learn, but it's just I can't do that stuff. I can't do that type of an experience when I have somebody over here, or they're never going to come back. And that's fine if they don't want to come back, but it's not fine if they don't want to come back because I didn't know how the game operated. You know, you definitely see 9 day difference between Airfix between Matchbox ones. Airfix aren't bad. You can see a lot more detail on the Matchbox ones. Aren't Yeah. Oh, time to move that chat anyways. I got it on top chat. Aren't bad, but you can see a lot more detail on Matchbox ones. Yeah, it depends on the Airfix ones. I think the Africa Core and the Desert Rats are pretty good. I know on one of the groups somebody painted a bunch of the U.S. paratroopers and commented how they really like the figures. I don't really like the U.S. paratrooper figures of by Airfix or NPC. You agree with that? Damn it. What do you agree with? Damn heart. Yeah. Matchbox, I got, what did we say? I had 3 Africa Core Matchbox guys. I don't even know how I got them. I've never bought Matchbox figures. They weren't available in the United States when I was a kid. Or they weren't available in the parts of the United States at the hobby stores that I went to in the United, when I was little. Well, when I was little, I meant like, 13, 14, 15 kind of thing. This is the sniper. This guy is definitely a useful character. Langeman. All right, we'll do Halm next. Make sure that no Halm comes to him. Beware a messenger named Halm. It's actually a great figure. A great figure by the great sculptor Dave Alsop. Just brilliant. This is the squad leader. Herr Schneider, the tailor. I believe that's what Schneider means in German, if I remember correctly. So I'm paying attention to you. So what's going on in the UK? They arresting everybody yet for for watching war game videos? I gotta get a drink. I'll be right back. I don't want to get you guys in trouble for watching, violent war games or something like that. We're going to kill some little 20 millimeter Nazis and communists and not feel bad about it. This is Worth. Lanza Worth. Vila. Bob Vila. What I probably should have done, I should have popped the names off all the other figures and just paint over the thing and then just glue the new nameplate on. Because it's just not worth the extra time that it takes to paint around this. A little piece of wood there that his nameplate goes on. Lights. So, I did an interesting bit of research yesterday and then realized that after learning this, I want to learn more. And the first thing I researched is, if you know anything about the Shermans in World War II, you pretty much had Shermans that were armed with three things. We're just American ones. We're not talking about the British ones that had the 17 pounder. But you got the 75 millimeter that's in the basic Sherman. I forget what caliber is. 40 caliber, something like that. And then you got the 76 millimeter L53. And then you got the 105. We're not talking about the 105 howitzer. That we're just not worried about that. But if you ever hear about the Shermans that had the 76 millimeter gun, I always complained that even though the 76 millimeter gun was a bigger gun than the 75 by 1 millimeter, its HE wasn't as effective. And I'm like, I got to figure out why. And I want to make sure that when we play this, that's represented correctly. Okay? So when we use whatever HE template, the 75 millimeter gun, the 76 should use one size smaller, at least. So I looked into it and I'm like, okay, what's the deal on it? I mean, is the first thing I thought of is, okay, the 76 millimeter gun has a higher muzzle velocity, and maybe it sinks into the dirt too far. I'm just trying to think about it logically. Like, it sinks into the dirt so far that when it detonates, it's not in a prime location and you're not getting enough of a burst. Well, that's not the case altogether. I looked into it, and apparently what it is because the muzzle velocity is so much more because of due to the friction and due to other issues, the walls of the actual shell of the 76 millimeter are thicker. So because the walls of the 76 millimeter shell are thicker, there's less space inside the 76 millimeter for there to actually be explosive. And it's a difference between, I looked it up, it's a difference between 0.69 kilograms and 0.39 kilograms. So it's pretty significant. It's like 60% or whatever, 55% of the amount of TNT that's in there. And so as soon as I saw, and that's the exact numbers that I got, and I'm like, all right, well, let's compare it. Like, what kind of, what the first thing I thought of is, okay, what is the amount of TNT that's in a, say, like a German 50, right? Because if that's the case, then I'm thinking out loud, it might be a little, equivalent, and then we just use the 76 millimeter HE. They got plenty of Shermans with the 76s. The HE burst is in 50, because I'm sure the straight rules aren't going to have that. But that's one thing that everybody mentions across the board. 17 pounder included also. 17 pounder didn't have a good HE round, or wasn't as good as a standard 75. So that kind of stuff it's important to me. Did they have stabilization for even the earlier version? I think so. Just stuff you start looking into stuff, and there's all kinds of like little wrinkles you didn't think about. Like, for instance, if you look at, like, I don't know about all tank destroyers, but like an M10, I believe I looked into it, and it did not have power traverse, so it was hand crank only. So it's much slower turning than, say, a Sherman. I mean, that kind of stuff that's important at the scale that I'm playing, because I'm basically playing a role playing game. For lack of a better word. I mean, we're not doing, what was that crazy game? Phoenix Command? I'm not doing Phoenix Command, and I'm not doing Final Combat. Those two are super crunchy. Yeah, I want to say the ones in the desert had them. I want to say even the Sherman ones that went to the desert had a stabilizer. I want to say that, and that's one of those things that I wouldn't have half a mind, because I'm taking this really slow. I have half a mind like, all right, we're going to play a game and we're going to bring in a Sherman tank. So let's do a deep dive into the Sherman tank, how it's represented in the game, and is everything, I've got all kinds of reference materials, and we all have all kinds of reference materials through the internet, to make sure that, because that's the whole thing. I want a Sherman 75 and a Sherman 76 to come out there, and you have to play them differently. You have to. Because, one's better at this, one's better at the other. And the HE isn't good for the 76. Okay, so keep the AP maybe in the 76 in a scenario with a vehicle came out. I looked up, like, what round did the tanks, like, you've got one chambered, I would imagine. That, if I'm in a tank, I'm chambering around, even if I'm like, if somebody says, Tony, you're a Sherman tank commander, what are you going to do? I said, well, we're going to chamber around, and it's going to be AP. Because even though 75% of the ammo on a Sherman was probably high explosive, you probably have more time to react to fire a high explosive round out than you do with an AP round. You want to have AP in the chamber in case you encounter a Panzer IV or something like that. Because the Sherman 75 is ample good to take out a Panzer IV. The Panzer IV is a little bit better at taking out the Sherman, and the Sherman is a little not as good, but it's still going to be curtains for either one. So I would want an AP shell in there, because it's like, oh, it's infantry at 400 yards. You got time to take out the infantry at 400 yards. A tank at 400 yards, yeah, you want to get the first shot out. Anyhow, yeah, that's like when I'm playing that Patton's Best game, whatever it's called, Armored Commander, and I'm playing a Sherman, I want all AP on the ready racks. Because if I want to put out a second round really quick, it's because it's a tank. It's not because there's, infantry there. Like, you don't need a if you need a split second difference in killing infantry, that's because they're like on top of you. And HE isn't going to save your ass. It's not going to shave your ass. Yeah, it's going to shave your ass all right. Did I ever find confirmation for no HE for the PAC 40? I didn't, but that's a great fucking question. I didn't get very far. The first thing I want to compare is, okay, well, how much is the HE charge for 75? What's the HE charge for a 50 millimeter? And just start working from there, because I think, I'm going to want that kind of detail. And it's not complicated. It's just, you get all the stuff for your vehicle there. You know. I find it really hard to believe that there's no HE for the 75 millimeter. The other thing is that the reference that I read that on is, I would probably call it an old reference. I don't know how much I trust it. I'm not saying it's full of lies, but it's suspect because, I suspect this is a relatively old book. This right here, this is where it came from. It's not as old as, say, something like this. This book I'm getting ready to pull out would be like the equivalent of like pulling out James for World War II. Okay? U.S. War Department Handbook on German Military Forces. So this is like what the U.S. knew at the time. So there's going to be a lot of bullshit in here. Okay? Like things that are like, 5 years after the war, we're like, oh, we got that wrong. But this one, Schiffer Military History. This came out in 1991. And if you look at heavy infantry weapons, if you look at the Panzerjäger unit 77, I believe that's where it is. And I love finding stuff and this kind of level of detail that I didn't know. Okay, here it says 75 millimeter heavy pack 40. It talks about the thickness. Interesting thing about a lot of these shields, a lot of the gun shields, was actually two pieces of metal with a gap between them. So it's almost spaced armor. I mean, really thin, but still two. It was noteworthy that this pack no longer fired explosive shells, but only anti-tank shells. But that's all it says. I don't know. I don't know. This is actually one of the first things I ever built. My 130, the 135th scale Tamiya set of the Pack 40 was the first 135th scale thing I ever built. Yeah, so I don't know if I don't know the truth to that. I'm sure that if they got issued ammo, and say they had, let's use a random number, 10 rounds, I would think that 3 would be HE. Pack 40 probably would not. How much they use HE is up to debate, since something like a Pack 36 might be used for infantry defense instead. I'll have to look into it. I can't believe they weren't issued with any. I can't believe they weren't issued with any. It's not that they didn't make any ammo for it, because it's technically the same gun as it's in the Panzer IV, right? The last iteration of the Panzer IV has basically the same gun in it, and they certainly had high explosive. Now, whether they weren't issued to the units because they were basically meant not for infantry support, well, I could see that, but because that'd be a good set, you got a Pack 40. I've got several Pack 40s. I've got 2 Airfix ones, and I got an SU one that I think is trashed. I may have one more. The Airfix ones I've had forever, Oh, no, they would have HE. Maybe capture examples. Only seen what armor piercing. Well, for what it's worth in any game, I just would be surprised that. I mean, that's pretty drastic. Like, they didn't have any. And then that wouldn't. How did that not get put in a game like Advanced Squad Leader? Because Advanced Squad Leader has rules for, like, ammunition that's either not a lot of rounds of it or special hollow charge stuff for the, and you'd think they would have a depletion number for it, high explosive, if that was the case, or just flat out didn't have it. Other rule sets, you run all the time. You got the 2 pounder that doesn't have high explosive. Apparently, they did make high explosive with the 2 pounder. They just didn't send it out with the tanks. But basically, almost every rule set there's a 2 pounder. It's like there's no high explosive for this gun, regardless of whether you're playing command decision, whether you're playing squad leader, whether you're playing other games that I've seen. Like, everybody's aware of that. So if they didn't issue any high explosive with the Pack 40s, I would think that at least one of those other game systems would have had it included in it, unless they just missed it, or unless it's incorrect. I don't know. You know what? I've already cleaned this. Let me do a little dive. Let me do a shallow dive. I actually like doing this. This is how you do a workout for your brain. Pack 40 HE ammo. Ammunition type. Wow, this is really complicated stuff. Okay, so here's the different rounds that they have for the Pack 40. Armor piercing, ballistic cap, high explosive T. Here it says how much the round weighs. We're not talking about heat rounds. Pack 40 was first issued in the USSR, where it was needed to combat the newest Soviet tanks. It was designed to fire the same low capacity APC, BC, HE, and HL explosives that had been standardized for use in the long KWK 40 tank mounted guns of the mid war and later marks of the Panzer IV medium tank. Because the first Panzer IV had the 43 caliber 75 millimeter gun. That one started off with a bulb type muzzle brake on it, and then eventually it had the 2-part one that's the bigger and the outer one. In the Panther G had that. When they went to H, they switched to the actually there's some late Gs that had the L48 gun. And the Pack 40 is actually an L46. In addition, there was an APCR shot for the PAC-40, a munition which relied on supplies of tungsten. Yeah, that's the super AP. Became very scarce. Main difference in rounds fired by the German 5mm gun were in the length and shape of the cartridge cases as well as the primers used. The 75mm KWK used in tanks had a fixed cartridge case twice the length of that used by the 7.5 KWK-37. That would have been the L24. The short-barreled 75mm used in early tanks. And the 7.5 centimeter PAC-40 cartridge was a third longer than that used by the KWK-40. Interesting. So the cartridge on the PAC-40's ammo, even though it's a 46 caliber 75mm gun, according to this, was a third longer than the one used by the equivalent gun inside the tank. Interesting. I thought it was literally the same ammunition. I guess not. According to this, the PAC-40 used a percussion primer, while the vehicle-mounted 75mm used electrical primers. Other than minor differences with projectiles' driving bands, all 75mm guns used the same 75mm projectiles. Okay, so only the brass part, basically. The longer charge case of the PAC-40 allowed a larger charge to be used and a higher velocity for the Panzergrenade 39 armor-piercing cap ballistic cap round to be achieved. The muzzle velocity was about 790 meters per second as opposed to 740 for the L43 and 750 for the L48. So according to this, the muzzle velocity of the PAC-40 is faster than the L48 German. That's interesting. I did not know that. So 2,600 feet per second as opposed to 24 or 2,500 feet per second. The only 75mm fighting vehicle in general used by Germany that possessed a longer barrel than the PAC-40 was the KWK-42, which is, of course, the one on the Panther tank. It's 3,070 feet per second, using more propellant in a larger cartridge fixed to it for the KWK-40's use. For unknown reasons, 775mm APCBC cartridges appear to, all right, and let's just to confirm, armor-piercing capped ballistic cap. Okay, so some of those cartridges appeared to be produced with a charge that gave a muzzle velocity of about 2,500 feet per second. This first documented firing by U.S. of a PAC-40 recorded an average muzzle velocity of 776 meters per second for its 9 most instrumental firings. Probably because of these results, period intelligence publications, Handbook on German Military Forces gave about 770 as the PAC-40's APCBC muzzle velocity. Post-war publications corrected this. So I haven't encountered anything yet that substantiates that. Ammunition. Panzergrenade 39. An armor-piercing cap ballistic cap projectile with explosive filler and tracer. So every round's a tracer. Weighted projectile, muzzle velocity. Panzergrenade 40, an armor-piercing composite rigid projectile with a subcaliber tungsten core. Okay, so you're going to have very few of those. That's the weird round. Panzergrenade 38 HL/B. A high explosive anti tank heat projectile with a shaped charge. Muzzle velocity 450 meters per second. That's significantly slower. That's half the speed. That's less than half the speed. And that apparently seems to be the HE round because it penetrates 75 millimeter across the board as opposed to 108 or 143. So why would they call it the standard HE round a heat round? I don't know. I got to do a deep dive on that. I'm certainly interested in looking into it and adding my own house rules for that stuff. Yeah, it's pretty crunchy, but hey, that's what gets me to paint this stuff, you know? Interesting. I'm sure that's not covered in the. I'm sure that's not covered in the rules. I will guarantee you that the rules do not show the high explosive of the 76 millimeter gun to be less effective than the 75. I bet they're the same burst and everything. We'll have to change that. We can't live with ourselves if we do that. There's every encounter you come across that reference over and over and over again. That it just wasn't as effective. And I'm like, how non-effective can it be? Well, if the difference is between 0.69 kilograms and 0.39, that's pretty significant. Now, I am not a science or physics expert, but I'm thinking that it's a matter of exponentialness. So even though one has half of about half of the TNT as the other one, it's not going to be half the size. It's probably going to be 2/3 the size or something like that. Yeah, but that's how you learn stuff, And I think just take small bit. Don't try every freaking weapon, Like, well, I don't want to do. Let's do a date on the 37. Just take one thing at a time. Okay, here's the Sherman. Is anything missing from this? You know, and then just move from there. I'm gonna have to make a sheet on the computer anyways that I can print out. So you might as well have all this added stuff in there. Again, that's why I want to play World War II. I want to play World War II with a rule set that is going to make me want to learn more about World War II than I already know. So Flames of War, that's not for me. I know I'm not going to learn anything new from Flames of War. It's going to be either whacked, like incorrect, or dumbed down. I want things dumbed up, not dumbed down. I want things dumbed up. But I mean, I haven't played World War II in 20 years. I haven't run a World War II game in 20 years. There's so much information now that wasn't available 20 years ago or wasn't accessible to mortals 20 years ago. Like, it's a shame not to use that. It's a shame not to use that. And those kind of details aren't what's going to slow down the game. Because it's still going to be like a sheet that you print out and all your information's right there. So this is I suspect that's how this game's going to play from the get go. What we just did, like a dive. It's like, well, so was it, it's an experiment in trying to learn more about the situation. I know that sounds maybe probably fucking boring to some people, but that's how we're going to learn shit. And then maybe realize, okay, is this represented correctly? Okay, and then the last color is Iraqi sand. And then we can put the names on these guys. But we're going to leave this area over here set up for the time being. I don't have any plans for it. That's going to be our test bed. It's real easy to turn the computer around, face it that way, and we're good to go. And the sessions that we do the gaming thing on, they'll be labeled for the gaming thing. So if you're not interested in the gaming, that game Tony likes to play is a piece of shit. I don't want to watch that. Well, okay, don't watch the video, Hope you don't miss the first session. Well, I hope you don't miss it also. I'm probably going to do it at a time that works for you. We're going to attempt to do that. That's why I'm not necessarily concerned about this being some kind of a game where I have to game master and just two groups of people. Okay, you go ahead and leave. All right, tell me what the other guy wants. That's not really what I want. That's a lot of wasted time. I'd rather just run one side and everybody else is on the other one. And we talk things out loud together. So I was thinking about this the other day, and I'm like, let's say you had a scenario like this one that I set up here, okay? Because I don't want two groups of people that aren't me. There's two different individuals that maybe aren't familiar with the game and are trying to outdo each other to be on opposite sides while we're trying to play the game. I don't think that's beneficial. I think an improvement is I'll run the game and I'll run one side as the bad guys, whoever it is. Just like if if you were running, say, a D&D game or something like that. And then I thought of, what's even better than that? If I take this scenario here, and I'll explain to you what that scenario is, or just the proportion of that scenario, which is basically one American squad split in two different groups. So half squad, and the Germans have two fire teams. So the Germans outnumber the Americans 2-1, and you've got 5 Americans, 5 Americans, 3 Germans, 3 Germans. And you do even better than that is, say me and an unnamed person who hasn't played this game yet comes over, and we each run one American side, and we each run one German one. So in other words, we each run a German fire team, probably the one that faces up against the other player who runs the Americans in that one, and then vice versa. And then we talk our way through. Like, we look at this guy. Where is he? Well, I don't know. I think he'd probably move. What do you think? Yeah, he probably would move. And then we make that decision kind of like a committee. Because unlike some people that I play games with, some people don't like to play by committee. I like it because I don't need to beat the other person. Okay? I don't need to get the thrill out of it. Like, let's say I'm playing against, old Mitch, right? I don't need to beat Mitch because I win about half the time anyways, and I can paint and he can't. So I don't need to outdo him, okay? So he rolls better than something in the game. It's just not that important to me. But it is, I do enjoy the discussion. Maybe it's a lead play by discussion, and so it's like an active conversation. So maybe it'll be a different kind of game that you guys have never seen, but well, we did that with DBA. But I think that could work. I think that could work. So it's basically World War II, a conversation, or something of that within the venue of the game. I think that would work. So that you're looking at it and you're like, because the problem is no matter how you do it, you as a player are going to have all kinds of information that the actual figure doesn't. Because one of the great things about DBA, probably the best thing about DBA, there's lots of stuff I don't like, but there's lots of stuff I do like. And there's actually more that I do like than I don't like by a factor of probably 5. But one of the things I really like about DBA is you have the pip die. That's the best thing about it. So you see everything, but you can't act on it. Because you're up in the heavens. You're a deity, and these guys don't listen to you. This game doesn't have that in so many words. Because you have, access to where you see where stuff is, and maybe your guys can act. So having somebody else to bounce ideas, I don't know, would this guy have done this? Or, probably would work, When you go to Virginia, I always have a war game with my high school best friend and his 2 boys, now about 30. Oh, man, you're old. I never think of Luke as Mitch's son. No, he's not. He's one of us. No, he's not. I'm 20 years older than him. We always talk through the game like that. Even change or add rules or something new. Yeah, you got to have the right people. And there's some people it doesn't work with. There's absolutely some people it doesn't work with. The original Mitch that I played with, that worked with him too. But I think that's probably the way to do it because it's the narrative that I want to see. I don't necessarily have to beat another person. I mean, if I wanted to beat another person, I'm like, hey, Mitch, let's have a painting contest. Well, won that one again. I mean, it's like I don't need that. So I think that would probably work. And especially if one person's more experienced than the other one, like I am. I'm going to be more experienced than him because I've played the game before and I have the rules. That helps him catch up quicker, So, I think that's probably the way to do it. Because the whole point is to learn about something about World War II and have all kinds of insane situations that happen. And I'm not saying play stupid, but there's a guy in the middle of the road. Let's try to run him over. Yeah, let's run him over. And maybe he's on my squad. I don't care. He should walk through the middle of the fucking street. Or, he goes and then there's a bunch of vehicle movement things. And it's like, well, I guess we'll keep moving and run his ass over just to see what would happen. That's how you're going to learn stuff, trying to break the game. Mitch was doing something historic on one time where he wasn't available. I forget what it was. I think he was finishing up one of his games. He was I think he was in a tournament, and he was in his final game or something like that. And then Luke and I decided to walk I think it was the last time it was held at Fredericksburg. So we decided to walk all the vendors. And walking all the vendors, we came across the people that were play testing. They had this table set up, playing Heroes of Normandy. And Normandy, Normandie. It's a board game made by, I don't know who that is. It's a beautiful board game. It's a beautiful looking board game with big, chunky counters and stuff on it. Done kind of, honestly, it feels kind of like a pulp game. But anyways, it's over the top a little bit. So we're like, yeah, I wouldn't mind playing this game. It's a good looking game for a board game. It's a really good looking game. And so Luke and I sat there and played it, and we played, out loud, trying to learn the game with the lady who is supposedly the person that was teaching people to walk up and do it. And we broke a game in a moment. I mean, in a moment, like, what's the skill of the game? Well, it's not important. I said, okay, well, how far does a grenade go? Because that really puts the perspective in different things. Like, if I want somebody to play this game immediately, I'm not going to tell them anything, and it's a waste of the time trying to understand like all the intricacies of the game. Just start playing. All you need to know is, okay, it's about the distance you see, and your grenade goes about this far. And then once you get that in a perspective, you can kind of figure out, okay, what you need to do. Like, you don't need to be like, all right, I'm gonna throw a grenade at that guy. Well, that's 3 times farther it can go. Or realize that, oh man, that guy's 10 inches away from me. I didn't know he could throw a grenade that far. Oh, of course he can. He can go 15 or whatever it is. So once you have that basic stuff, just start playing. And the rest, like I said, I haven't played it in 20 years. So, it's going to be fire and movement. You suppress guys, you move guys around to get a better position. Then those guys take over fire. The other guys move. Fire and movement. It should be a no-brainer. Now whether you're able to do it or not, well, that just depends on who gets killed when. So, or not get killed. They might get pinned down and they're shaking, and you can't count on them to do what you need them to do. So, it's pretty close of a system that I was doing. And if it still feels like it's missing detail, I got my old rules that there's things that this rule set doesn't cover that I really liked how we were thinking about it. But it's certainly more advanced, so just don't need to throw that in there right now. Let's just play the rules the way they're intended to be played, and if something's completely wrong, well then, all right, we'll put a note. I'll revisit this. Like, let's say we find out that the PAC-40 doesn't get issued any high explosive ammunition. And we know for a fact that that's the case. Well, that's going to be the rule of the game. It doesn't matter that it allows you to fire HE if they literally didn't have any. They didn't friggin' have any. It's not like, well, the rules allow you to do it. No, reality trumps the rules. And the whole purpose is really to learn more about reality, about what really happened. What kind of stuff these guys went through. Put yourself in their shoes kind of thing, And that's really, that's my objective. And it'd be entertaining at the same time. These same friends gave the Undaunted Stalingrad game. Haven't really gotten into it, but I like the games that incorporate fog of war, morale, etc. I like games that incorporate things you can't control. And the best thing of all, it's percentile. Thank you, Jesus. I mean, that's where it's all about. Percentile, that's my jam. I like percentile. Hey, what's your chance of it's the die roll. Not like, well, there's a 1 in 6 chance. Well, what is that? 17? I mean, we can all do that math, because that's simple math now, but it's just, there's no obfuscation. It is. It's clarity. Love percentile. Now, couple rules on dice already. I haven't even played a game, and there's already going to be rules. All right? And it doesn't matter. I'm probably going to do it. I'm probably going to fumble one too. All dice are going to be on that dice tray. No buts about it. Not going to roll dice on the battlefield. Okay? I got a big-ass dice tray. If you fuck it up and roll a dice outside here, they don't count. If you roll one die outside here, and you have the other one in here, you roll them both again in here. So, them's the rules. You don't like it, don't come over. One of you guys, Jeffrey, I think, was saying, what happens if I pick... This is really... I expect this to be pretty unlikely to do it. Say I pull a chit out, and I get 2 chits out at the same time. That's kind of hard to do, because I can feel them around. But if I pull out 2 chits, and I got Zorner and the command leadership token for Young, which one do I do first? You don't do either of them. They go back. They go back, you give them a mix, and you pull one out again. If you do that 3 times in a row, I'll have a pistol here that you can off yourself with. You're incompetent. You shouldn't be around anymore. I don't think that would happen one time. You can feel the tokens. They're relatively thick, you know. Go to the corner and off yourself. You're no good. You've pulled multiple tokens multiple times in a row. It's one of those videos where Mitch ends up rolling the die. He rolls it and it falls off the table, like it could happen to anybody. But he picked it up and rolled it and it fell off like 3 or 4 times in a row. Should have had a machete. Get a machete over. He's got a banana plant in his backyard. Hey, put the machete by the banana plant. All right, you're gonna have to kneel here. Whack. You know. No, I don't want the dice banging against terrain, knocking figures out of the way. You roll that. You know, that's probably going to be on a different table than the battlefield, anyways. So, real simple. Well, first of all, you can't have any cocked dice, anyways, with D10s. It's pretty difficult to do that. And you know, I'm going to roll one on the ground. I get excited when I roll things, you know. It makes, that's why I like playing games with dice. Because say a die roll's coming that's real important. Like, man, I got this 37 millimeter anti-tank gun, and I gotta get a hit on this one tank or he's gonna blow me away. See, you can get excited, not, you know. That's like your own spin, not like, all right, I'll shuffle a card and pull one out. Really exciting, you know. It's like, it's not the same, you know. Other rule, and I've always done this my entire life, and I'm not going to change. I generally like doing black and white, but I mix up the dice depending on who you're playing. Probably going to use the same dice for both sides. It makes sense to do that. White's always the ones digit. Always, 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 always. Because we used to play naval games, that was the case. So, you know, if I was playing, say, Italians, right? This would be green with white lettering. And it would be the tens digit. And then, you know, I got a blue one or a red one, depending if you're playing British or French or, you know, German. I think this is the one we use for the German. Just to be consistent. This is always the ones digit. I have a set of dice that actually have this with like 9-0 and a smaller 0. It's painful to look at. So white is always the ones digit in whatever color you're going to use. So anyhow, them's the rules. You don't like it, I'll solo it. And the rules will still be the same. Or that person gets the GIMP treatment, like you mentioned a few sessions ago. That was hilarious. The GIMP. Oh no, that's no. They have to do that when they come here. Yeah, so I don't. So that way, let's say you have somebody come over. It's a pain in the ass, and you don't want them to come back again. Well, they could just invite themselves. Well, if they don't know where the house is, gag them and bag them. Put a big bag on them. They don't know where they're going. Gag them and bag them. Now I'm never running a game at a convention again. You know, and I really haven't had that bad of an experience at one, but still, it's being rushed too much. You know, that's not what I want to. That's not my idea of a good time. Is to be rushed. Like I get paid to get rushed, and I don't need to do that on my own time. You know, gag 'em and bag 'em. I want the kind of game that, like, if there's another player and he's like, I don't know what to do, that I feel like I can help him out because I want those guys to do better. You know, I don't know if that makes any sense, but I don't game that outdo other people. That's, you know, not with people I like. It doesn't really matter which one of us wins. You know, maybe it's a different outlook than other people. You know, I don't know. You're back. You missed it all. Anyways, good stuff to come. But it's going to be slow going, but we're going to do it right. We're going to do it right. And it's going to be different than anybody has been exposed to before. And maybe it's not their cup of tea. There's some people that like to roll a lot of dice. There's a lot of people that want a game that's really fast. I don't want to put this much detail in painting the figures and the tanks and everything, and it's just like, all right, roll a d6 to see how many guys die, and then you get to pick which guys they are. Random, like, what if the guys that survive are the guys you don't want to, or what if it's the guy that it just there's random stuff that happens, All right, so next thing on the list is going to be putting the names on these guys down. So we'll have to get Mr. Elmer's glue out here. I don't put labels on the weapons. That's too far. There's a limit to everything. Okay. Right, names. Let's rinse this. To tag you up, you're also from Virginia. What are you putting on there? Gotta go. Okay, man. Thanks for stopping by. Another Yankee from Virginia. What I like to say is, how you tell if somebody's a Yankee? Works every time. Call them one. And if they get upset, if they don't get upset, they're a Yankee. I mean, really, try that. It'll work. It works. Okay, so we've got some floating names over here. Mueller and Langeman. Okay, we're going to put them up first. And luckily, I remember who's who. All right, Langeman is a sniper. So let's get the tweezers, because the tweezers are important in this stage to minimize any cleanup that might happen. So we'll grab a corner. Ooh, that brush is a bit hard. That's even harder. Good Lord. Yeah, we put some of these brushes through hell, but that's why we buy the cheap ones. Oh, Nelly. That's not supposed to happen. What the hell happened there? All right, no harm, no foul. That's never happened to me before. All right, and then we're going to put this. Now I've already test fitted this, and it should fit. Did I switch this back, by the way? Let's see. Yeah, I did. Doing Americas. No, I'm doing the last bit of Germans. Doing the last bit of Germans here. All right, we're going to pull this a little bit more. These These little wooden things are a little smaller, not as long as I would have liked. But they're close enough that I feel comfortable not having to glue another one in its place. All right, and then we'll grab something that maybe we can press down on like this. There we go. This is perfect, actually. For some reason, the back of this brush has almost a chipped end like that. Okay, and that's Langemann. All right, Mueller is this guy running at the foot at a brisk pace. So we're going to do the same thing with him. We'll grab his name, which of course is just German for Miller. A lot of the Germanic names have. So what's the correct name to call? Like, I was going to say oficios, but that's in Spanish. What your trade? The trade names, like, a Smith, and that would be Schmidt, and different kind of stuff. Just like in the German, just like in the English language. Trade type last names. This guy is a Miller, German Miller, Mueller. Okay. Another umlaut-friendly name. All right. And the rest of these guys, I have names for them, but we got to cut them out. So that's what we'll do next. Okay. And the namey things are over here. All right. And some of these, we know who they are. It's just, this is the old. Let's make sure this is fresh. This is a faux pas. A Faux Pax. These like to stick to themselves, even though they've never been used. All right, there's nothing on the back side, is there? No. Okay. So, Halm is here. Kranke is here. Fromm is here. He's the guy with the Panzerfaust. Where he did maths is it? Fromm. Who else do we have? Halm is this guy. Kranke is this guy. This guy is Leinz. Schneider is this guy here, one of the squad leaders. Oberfeldwebel. Oh, I'm sorry, Obergefreiter. Obergefreiter. This guy is Schaefer, and Schaefer is down here with a little umlauts. Wielandworth or somewhere else. Though Schneider is this guy. What I put? Oh, this guy, I moved him over. I thought it was the Schneider guy. He just has a similar-ish pose. This is Becker. I'm going to cut the verticals all in one time. This is Schenke. And these two guys are a different piece of paper. Ah! This is Vila and Verth. All right, now we'll cut all the verticals. And hopefully these things don't go flying. Vila and Verth. All right, this can go away. No, we're not going to put it over there. We can't use that bad habit of just throwing everything over there. All right, we got all these vertical ones that are cut. Okay, so we got home and Kranke from Leinz, Schenke, Schaefer, Becker, and Schneider. Okay, it's just an extra piece that went all the way through. Okay, I think we got everybody. All right. Leinz is right here. I like using Arial narrow. The narrow just makes it easier to put a big name there. And let's use the back of this like we've been doing. And there's Leinz. Back on the names. Your German family name is Seifert. Seifert. That's a cool name. Stupid YouTube Live won't let me type it in umlaut. I know how to spell your name. It's the same thing. We just drop the E and do a double and put an umlaut over the O. Yeah. Yeah, you're going to be a cook. Or it's not you. It's just somebody with your name. Let's get that right. You know? We're not going to put you in a line of fire. You know? Because it's not like, hey, let's get Rick killed. It doesn't work that way. You know? You're just going to be somebody that just happens to have your name. You know? It'd be funny, though, if your crest of arms was like a baker or some shit like that. You know, some guy with a... There's some silly... I actually know somebody whose crest of arms has a freaking baker. Pretty funny. It'd be really funny if it was you, because you're as good a cook as I am. Got time to cook. I got to do this, man. All right. Let's make sure we put it on the right guy. That's not you. That's you right here. Herr Schneider. I gotta look at what that is. That's like Taylor. Guy with his scissors. Guy that plays with scissors is named Schneider. Seriously, it's something like that. Like a can't remember exactly what it is, but your German SCA is well. I don't have any German soldier voodoo doll. Instead of a needle, we use a wooden spoon for him now. Since he's a cook. Wer ist Herr Cook? Wer ist mein Cook? Oh, yeah. It's nobody here. It just has your. Just happens to have your last name. I don't want to make you. I don't want to make you somebody who's fighting for the National Socialists. That's not very cool. Or make somebody a communist. That's like not. That's unacceptable. There's one of the memoir books I was reading about it. It's funny the story about this. I have several books that I got many years ago from the military book club, and one of the books is I believe it's called Blood Red Snow, and it's a memoir of a German machine gunner on the Eastern Front. Like this guy, like Schaefer. Okay, he runs the machine gun MG34, MG42. I forget what it is. I think he starts with the 34, and his account is really similar to. As a matter of fact, it might have inspired some of the other stuff. If you've seen that movie, that series that I've talked about many times, that's actually very good. If you haven't seen it, it's on Amazon, called Generation War. It's about an hour and a half episode, and there's three episodes. There's like the beginning of the war, there's the one in the middle, and there's one at the end. And it basically follows these five kids that are Germans that get split their own ways. Okay, one of the characters is a lieutenant in the Wehrmacht, and the other one is his younger brother, who's just a regular private. And one of the girls ends up being a ambulance. No, she ends up being a nurse. Another one is a recording artist, and her Jewish boyfriend. So they all encounter something different throughout the war. And I just finished watching it recently with my daughter for the third time. I I watched it for the third time. She watched it for the first time. And one of the things that I realized why I really liked it, other than almost everything is done really, really well, the sets are really, really well done. There's a few errors because, you know, I'm a I'm a Panzer nerd burglar, so I pick up different things that I'm like I wouldn't have done that on there. But anyhow, for the most part, it's done pretty well. But one of the things that I noticed that's really good is it hops between all the characters because like they all have a different trajectory, and it doesn't spend a ton of time on each one before it switches to another one. So like let's say one of the characters you're not really interested in what's going on with them, in about 3 minutes it's going to go to somebody else. You know, so it keeps that fresh. It actually does a really good job of that. Um, but the memoirs of this German machine gunner basically start with he gets sent. Um, he's in training, and his first action is basically in on his way to Stalingrad. So it doesn't mention anything before Stalingrad. He's like on a train going to Stalingrad, and there's air raid and stuff, and they have to get out of the train and stuff. And a lot of it is like when he hits the ground running, it's almost kind of like the same time that those people start hitting the ground running, because there's nothing before Stalingrad that's shown on there. So you got one episode that's like 42 to early 43. The other one's like 43 and 44, and the other one is like the last year of the war. But this particular memoir has some parts that are pretty good and some parts that are pretty boring. But one of the things that it talks about, including an encounter with like a German flamethrower tank, like he's in the German army, and there was this one in late '43 where they had to use a German flamethrower tank to go knock out some bunkers that were being troublesome or something like that. So it goes into some detail about that and the smells that it makes and that kind of stuff, and a lot of stuff with the field kitchen. That's where it finally got around to the cook part. It did a lot of stuff with the field kitchen, and I've never seen anybody paint one in miniature. They certainly make one. But how he had to, like, they would ask him to go, hey, go get these rations, and he had to cross enemy lines, and that, he encountered some interesting stuff in that memoirs. But that particular memoir, I got it 20 years ago, and never read it. It was one of those military book clubs, and I have to sign up for it. So I've been doing Audible the last couple of years pretty diligently, and I've actually gone through that Audible book and didn't realize that I actually had the physical book also. But physical book, never read it, and the Audible. I only do Audible books if it's word for word, unabridged. Because otherwise, you're like, okay, well, what are you skipping over? What you skip over might be what I'm the most interested in. I saw a video. I thought it was from a movie of a German being taken prisoner. It turned out it was actual footage, and the German looked like he was 14 years old. Probably was. Yep. Desperate measures. Okay, from is right here. Oh, this chair is getting very squeaky. And I tried to watch Fury for the second time with my daughter for the first time, and we hated it. And I saw it in the movie theater, and I didn't hate it in the movie theater, but I'm like, I can't watch it. I just don't care. Those characters that are in that tank are so unsavory, and maybe that was the whole point. But like, I don't care what happens to them, you know. And there's just too many good things to watch to be wasting your time on something you're like, I'm not really interested in. Like, I remember when my daughter was a lot little, like, hey, I'm waiting to watch Lord of the Rings. And I'm not a Lord of the Rings fan by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm like, I've seen the first one, and like I wanted to see The Hobbit, which I've never seen. But I'm like, I'll just wait to watch it with my daughter, and I got her to sit through one or two. And she's like, I don't want to see him anymore. At that point, I'm like, well, I don't want to watch it by myself. I'd rather see something else. So she never saw him. But not everything can be, not everything can appeal to everybody. You know. Oh, you're being incorrigible, aren't you? Good Lord. Okay, that's home. No harm will come to him. Maybe you could throw in some smaller scale figures to represent the kids. They make kids. They make kids. They make a set of. They make a set of. They make a set of. Plastic Soldier Company, I believe, does. They actually make several sets. Plastic, so not plastic. They don't make it. They Plastic Soldier Review is I want to say Orion or Caesar makes it. I think Caesar makes really late war some really interesting figures actually. Let's go to periods, and we're gonna go down to Germany. Infantry, Luftwaffe personnel. Let's go to other. Odomar's German commanders, Matchbox German pioneers, Mars German Volkssturm defenders. Yeah, you got some interesting characters here. A couple old men. You got a guy who even has one of those water-cooled machine guns, whatever the hell they're called, from the First World War that the Germans used. MG-17, MG-18, something like that. Looks like a lady figure with a Panzerfaust Kleiner, the very first one that they used, which is, still deadly. It's not nearly as powerful as one of the other. You got a guy that's wearing like a hat with looks like a Bergman. So they make those Volkssturm guys. Somebody makes kids. Here's Defenders of Berlin by Audemars. Yeah, there's some kids in here. Defenders of Berlin. Look at this guy. He's even got the Hitler Youth little neat little socks on. He's shooting the Panzerfaust there. Looks like these guys have a shitload of flash, though. That was the Defenders of Berlin. What about the last Defenders of Berlin? Oh, it's the same figures. These guys have a little bit less flash. Hey, got a couple ladies down there in the bottom. Ryan Volkssturm. Let's see. There's some cool dudes there, There's some cool looking figures. Oh, this one even has the Fuhrer there. Ooh, that looks like the Fuhrer. Not my Fuhrer. In frail health. You want the war to, and don't kill him. The Germans might do better. Germans in Berlin. Oh look, there's even one with the Fuhrer and two little kids. Well, not little kids, but teens. Yeah, they make some interesting stuff. They certainly make some interesting stuff. A Fieldwagen? Yeah, I've never seen anybody, and I mean the German army was significantly horse-drawn. Significantly horse-drawn. I read somewhere recently that there was more horse-drawn than the Russians was, and that really surprised me. Volkssturm Defenders Set 2. Oh, here's another one. This is like a girl. She's got a pistol. Really interesting figures. Anyways, if I do some kids, we'll use their first name. Just like I do with the partisans. The French partisans all use the first name on there. We'll name one Greta and you gotta kill her. I'm just going to leave that right there. I don't think I've ever heard of women fighting for Germany. Yeah, there was a few of them in Berlin. Werewolves. Okay, let's see what we got here. Oh, that's a dud. That's not really a name for a cut through. Okay, Becker. Becker is this chap right here. Got my juices flowing. All of a sudden, I want to do that kind of stuff. Well, I've never done really late stuff like that. I've got those two downtown buildings that would work for Berlin along with the other buildings I just did. And I got two Panther turrets. Two Panther turret bunkers. Wer ist mein Becker? He's right here. Okay. That pecker known as Becker. Okay, this is Schenka. Actually, I should probably flip it over. See who I've got here that's easy to get. Oh, it's him. Well, I guess we'll do him next. Oh, got awfully excited. Go for painting. What's up, man? Go for it, painting. Yeah, go for it. Do it now. Do it now. All right. Who we got here? Nobody. Dud one, okay? I mean, I cut through it and there was stuff sitting on here. So who do we have left? Schaefer, okay, he's the machine gunner right here. Yeah, I want to name him the same thing that I had him because that's what I do is I paint him and I'm like, all right, what's this guy look like? He looks like of these names that I have, which one of these looks like him? So I already have a mental image of what this guy looks like. We don't want to come up with, call somebody else Schaefer. And there can only be one. There can only be one guy with a certain surname. There won't be multiple Schaefers. There won't be multiple Schmidts, even though Schmidt's a common name. There's only going to be one guy that I have named Schmidt. Schaefer. This guy's Worth. Is this the name? It's not. We're left with Worth and Vila, and they're over here. Perfect. What time is it? I'm not gonna paint. I'm not gonna put the tufts on them. That's an awful long thing. So we're probably gonna stop after this name, after these two names. Like I said, my goal was to have these guys done by the end of the weekend. I think we'll be able to accomplish that. I don't think that's too big of an ask. Don't be such a big ask. What? Okay, and the last guy is worth? What are you worth? Yes, that's me. How many Reichsmarks are you worth? Internet says 100,000 women were trained on anti-aircraft guns but weren't allowed to shoot. And 500,000 were Wehrmacht. Well, that's a lot. I mean, that's a big percentage. No, yeah, they wanted them back home making babies. You know, making little blonde babies. How many folks have gone here? 4? Let's do the black on the edges. And we'll stop. Let's do the black on the edges. We could do that. I think we got that in me. What do you think? Ah, a beautiful sound. The sound of you filling your own pants with excrement, yes. Full load. All right, let's start with Halm over here. And I really like using the craft paint for this because the craft paint is cheap because it has a lot of fillers and not so much pigment. And one of the things that I read is it's the pigment that makes it look glossy-ish. The fillers are actually flat. So if you're using something that has a lot of filler in it, it's going to be flatter than the regular quality black paint would be. And I'm not going to go back and seal the edges. So having something that's already sealed black and flat is the way to go for me. Plus it's super cheap anyways. That's why we use this cheap ass paint for this. All right, that's home. I wonder how many women the Russians used. A lot. We looked it up the other night. 20% of the women, 20% of the Soviet forces were women. That's a lot. That's pretty significant. I believe that's what it was. I like guessing. I guess it on the nose, you know. Hey, I'm a good guesser. What can I say? I suck at a lot of other things, but apparently it's not guessing. Oh, wait. Is that what we looked up? No, the partisans. Yeah, we looked at. I was like, how many? I wonder what percentage of ladies were in the French resistance fighters, and I'm like, it's got to be like 20%. That's exactly what it was, like 15 to 20%, which is really high, honestly. And then we looked up the Russians, and it was a pretty high number. That's Vila. I think I looked at my Russian snipers and I got 5 or 6 of them. And only one is a verified woman figure. So there's another one that I'm going to turn into a lady. They're like a hooded figure, whatever. Olga. Olga the Nazi killer. Mr. Kranka here. It's spelled cranky. Watch the Austrian Workshop. Hold on. Australian Workshop Wednesday. They're putting another grant together. The U.S. must have sent them a bunch. Baby. So this week, other than last week, you got the grant, you got the Lee, right? And the grant was basically the British turret, which was, I think a lot better looking, but it took some of the machine guns they had out. But one of the things I found out, and I did not know this, is that many of the Grant Lee tanks that were sent actually had the Lee configuration. So they had the Lee turret, and they were, totally used in British service in North Africa. Um, Oh, I didn't know that. I just figured, oh, the British are going to use their own pattern 37 millimeter turret, but that's not the case. There was several Lees that were pressed into British services. Okay, two more. Okay, and last but not least, Schaefer. Okay, so that is our usual suspects here. Uh oh. There was a scenario in Evelyn Hill game that was based on a battle where the British Grant, that was on guard duty, faced off with over 100 German tanks. Didn't matter when it didn't have any more ammo. Yeah. Grants carry a bit of ammo, but man, those 37s can really go through. That's a pretty decent gun. I mean, for the desert, it's